Hello there, and welcome to yet another episode of the National Land Podcast. This is episode number 131, and since you aren't part of my recording process, I think that this is take number 131 for this intro. I have messed this up so many times. I am just going to go forward, and we're just going to get there. We're just going to go through this. We're going to get done somehow, and I don't care if there's any flaws anymore. I've done this so many times and not done it right. We're plowing ahead. Okay, I'm your host, Max Christian, and I am the Chief Marketing Officer at National Land Realty. Before we get started, I want to remind everybody out there, subscribe to this podcast. Make sure that you catch our next episodes. We are always turning out fantastic content. Now let's get on with today's topic. Today, we're talking about the Conservation Stewardship Program, otherwise known as CSP. This is the largest program for conservation in the United States. It enables landowners to be reimbursed for activities such as rotational grazing, cover crops, invasive species mitigation. This program is extremely valuable. Indiana National Land Realty agent Jacob Jenkins has spent the last year researching this program in order to provide value for his clients. Today, we're talking with Jacob on how to get involved in CSP, how it works, and what exactly it can do for you. Now sit back and enjoy. All right, I am sitting here and I'm talking out of his pickup truck, and I'm going to have to ask you to describe what exactly, where are you right now? Because if it's McDonald's, that's going to be even better. But I'm here with Jacob Jenkins out of Indiana. We're here to talk about the Conservation Stewardship Program. But first, before we jump in, Jacob, just tell me, one, where are you right now? And two, tell me a little bit about how you got to National Land, how you got into land sales.
Yeah, so I've been out looking at some properties. This is a listing that come up that I was just trying to view for a client of mine, but before he was to come down and look at it. So it's a little bit further than for him to drive. It's not too far from my house. So I just drove out here to kind of check it out. So I'm sitting on the edge of a cornfield right now. A little bit of backstory on me. I was a mechanic for 15 years. I worked on heavy construction equipment, Caterpillar equipment, and then had a back injury that made me kind of rethink on what I wanted to do the rest of my life. So I think with like a lot of individuals, I happened to be sitting down watching a Buck Ventures TV show and saw the National Land Realty reel come on at the end and reached out and got a hold of, lost his name there for a minute. Logan. Yeah. Logan reached out and got me with the broker here in the state and talked and been running with ever since, going on my 4th year.
Going on 4 years now and doing well. So, and then you run your own farm as well?
Yeah. So, own 108 acres here in Southern Indiana. Me and my brother own it together. We don't do any active farming, but we do have it leased out to a row crop guy, just a little bit north here, about 20 minutes.
Perfect. And are you hunting on that, or are you hunting on other leases?
So we hunt here, trying to think, 108 acres. There was 45 tillable, so the remainder's in wooded acreage. And then my uncle owns 150 acres right across the road that is predominantly all wooded. But then we'll hunt here mostly, but then do a little bit of public ground hunting as well, close to the Clark State Forest and Hoosier National Forest. We like to go out there and kind of learn new areas and see if we can capitalize on it.
I'm absolutely sitting here with OnX putting pins on there so I can poach some hunting.
There you go.
that had nothing to do with the podcast. I just want to know, because I've seen some of your shots and I need to figure out where you're going because I need to be there. All right. So we're here today to talk about the Conservation Stewardship Program, CSP. And you basically just went through classes, right? And got everything done to be part of that?
So not so much classes, just kind of learning about the program.
Just going through it. Okay, I didn't know if it involved a formal training or not, but it just got done kind of going through all of the systems and getting checked out to where you can utilize it.
Correct.
So tell us a little bit about what it is, like, and more oriented towards, Conservation Stewardship Program, what it is and what its goals are.
Okay. So the goals basically of the program is kind of a reward and more program. What it does is it encourages you to maintain and improve your property through a wildlife habitat standpoint. main focus is, I guess the main focus of my property is attacking invasive species that kind of get in your understory, block out a lot of the natural vegetation that the wildlife need. And then they also emphasize on soil management, erosion control, and so that's the main focus of it, is just making the quality of the land better through this stewardship program.
And are the benefits measured in tax, or is that's what I'm assuming is it's measured as a tax incentive?
So not really a tax incentive. Mainly it is a kind of like the reward and more. So it basically is a way to help you improve your property, and the main focus being the invasive species, because they are very thick and heavily populated through the southern part of the state. So it's just for them to help you through a payment process, help you to tackle that problem, eradicate it, so that you don't have to worry about it continually spreading across the landscape.
Gotcha. So this is more landowner assistance.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Perfect. So, which also does benefit your landscape, because if you've engaged in the program, then you're going to increase the value by eliminating invasive species and stuff like that. So that would be the primary incentives of the program. So what motivated you to pursue this, and sort of, why did you want to end up utilizing this as sort of your knowledge base as for land real estate?
Yeah. So one, just to obviously make my property better from a wildlife standpoint. The more you can knock out these invasives, the more natural vegetation that can come in and help forage for your deer and your turkey. So that just makes your property hunting better. I'm trying to think, this is probably close to 8 or 9 years ago. I was watching some YouTube channels, and I think it was called Advantage Management. And they were going through they had bought a property, were looking at making it better for the wildlife. And I saw the plant species that they were going after at the time. I didn't really know what it was exactly. I just knew it was a bush that was on my property. And after watching those shows and kind of understanding not the negativity side of it, but then just the basic uselessness of the plant being on your landscapes, like, well, shoot, I want to make my property better. So I'm going to try and do this. And just through researching, I found that, there's an incentive program. And if this is something I'm going to do anyway, then it would be, cost effective if I can reach out and have my application accepted to where I can have, an incentive for doing it.
Yeah. And this is out of curiosity. I'm not part of, you can tell my cluelessness by the questions I'm asking, because I'm not part of the CSP program and haven't jumped into it too much. And is there a cost share associated with it? Will they do some of the work for you or with you, or reimburse you?
So this program, a lot of people probably are more familiar with the EQIP program, which CSP and EQIP are very similar, but the EQIP is more of a, hey, we want you to tackle this problem. When you have eradicated this, then we will pay you, kind of turn in receipts and let them know how much it costs you to do it. And then there's, depending on the program and how it falls into place, is how much you get paid for. The CSP program is a one-time payment each year. It's usually set up on a 5-year program, depending on how heavily your property is, the invasives are on your property. So it's just a once a year payment. It's basically like, hey, this is the plan that you need to do over the next 5 years. You'll get a payment there. Of course, government fiscal year starts October 1st. So the payments are typically right around that October, September timeframe, or October, November timeframe. Sorry. And it's just a kind of, here's what you need to do it. And then you get a payment each year after that until the
Gotcha. So you work with one of their advisors, or I don't know what their clinical name or their. So
it would be. It's actually they work real closely with the Indiana DNR. So it's a forester that comes out and kind of gives you goes through your property, walks it with you, kind of give you an idea of what they think needs to be done, and then they set that plan up. And if you're not a hands-on, want to do it yourself kind of person, there is a registry of foresters that are I don't want to say, like, you might call them like certified, but they've gone through a set of criteria and application process that they are good through the NRCS office. Like, hey, these guys are good ones to work with because they do it the way that it needs to be done.
So the people that would do the work according to meet the standards of the CSP program.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I was just kind of like, okay, like how's the whole system of it? I always want to get into the nuts and bolts because that kind of helps people understand, like, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to contact, the program, and then I'm going to have somebody come out and analyze my property and tell me what they think are the issues that I can help take care of. And then I will get a check to reimburse me for the work that I do every year on a set schedule, provided that I meet those criteria. Right. And it's kind of so one of the questions up front is, who do you talk to even engage in the CSP program?
Yeah. So the first person you want to talk to is get a hold of your local NRCS office, and they'll. It took us a little while because of scheduling and then weather, but typically somebody out of the office will call you back, figure out, hey, what do you think you have on your property that would need to be taken care of? And of course, with mine here, it's mostly bush honeysuckle and autumn olive. So talking to them, we scheduled an appointment where they came out here and they walked the property. Either somebody in the office or one of their district foresters will come out. The district forester is a little bit more savvy on that side because they're looking at it day to day. They know what they're looking for, and they can kind of judge how heavily the area is infested with the invasives. And then they're the ones that build the program that you're going to go through to eradicate it. And then at that point, there's some additives that go on with it that you can do tree plantings, and then also wildlife pollinators. And those are just some of the things we kind of talked about beforehand that add to your property to make it look better of an application, because you're willing to do more of the work and more things that make the habitat better. And then at that point, they kind of wrap it all up into an application and it gets submitted to the state. And then from there, you're just kind of waiting to see if your application gets selected. And of course, that all kind of depends on the government, how much funding's going on. And then once your application is submitted, there's basic kind of a formal contract that's listed out. You sign some paper saying, hey, yeah, I do agree to do this. And then you get started, and they'll help you along the way. They kind of give you some ideas of, hey, this is what you're going to want to use as far as chemical base to take care of the problem. And so they're hands-on. They help you a lot through it. It's just asking the right questions.
So what, from a landowner perspective, what would the idea sounds pretty straightforward, is you're improving your landscape, you're taking care of invasive species, but from a sort of a tangible standpoint, what are the benefits that you're going to get out of this? Like, why would I want to do this?
Yeah. So, benefits is obviously better habitat for your wildlife. So, if you want more deer on your property, you gotta have food. Food, cover, and water is what animals need. So if you can provide that native vegetation that gives them a forage, and then also your habitat is going to be more beneficial for them as far as bedding. So then that pulls more wildlife onto your property, so it makes it a better hunting property. And then just say if it's something you were holding on to, but then you were eventually going to sell it, just from a viewing standpoint, your property is going to look more appealing because you're not going to have these overgrown areas of bush species that are basically not beneficial to any type of wildlife. So from that aspect, it is a way to make your property more appealing to buyers, because most buyers that are looking for a property, especially a hunting property, are going to have some knowledge base of what invasives are and what wildlife, is used or good, what food source is there for the wildlife. And if they come on your property and it's full of invasive species, they're going to, hey, this isn't really that great of a buy. There's a lot of work that's going to have to be involved to get it to a substantial point for the wildlife. So that would be one of the tangible aspects.
Gotcha. Is there a benefit to property value if you engage in a program like this?
I think from just an appealing standpoint, there is some. I wouldn't say it's a huge value added, but there would be some.
Perfect. And so if you're a landowner and you're curious about it, what would be the eligibility requirements in order to talk to the NRCS office and ask them about CSP in the first place?
Yeah, so eligibility it's kind of just a case by case study on the property and how thick the invasive are. But if you think you've got them, I would just reach out to them and say, hey, I've got some. Don't know if it's really meets your all's qualifications on it being a property that's worth tackling at this point in time. But it's just reach out and they'll usually get with you. And if nothing else, they come out and walk your property. And I would advise, especially with the forester, if they're out there, they're kind of at your disposal. If you've got any other questions, they're very knowledgeable on the timber species that's in your area. And I know the one that was kind of walking through mine, of course, we've got a pretty good stand of white oak and red oak on our property that's never been timbered since I've been alive anyway. But they were going through and they're like, hey, you may not knowing if that's something you want to do, but you may, in the future, if you wanted to try and do something, your trees are about at that point where, it would be good to timber them. And if you wait too long, they might be getting a little more stressed out. So I would just advise, you've got them there, have them at your disposal, ask them anything that you can think of. And they're usually pretty good about getting the information to you.
And the one question I had was, so you're entering into an obligation when you do this, right? So like you have an agreement, it's a contract. How is success measured? So how do they assess that you've done the job that you need to do? And what are some of the typical activities that you need to perform when you engage in a program like CSP?
Okay. Yeah. So on mine, my program is going to be tackling the invasive species. I've selected to do a tree planting. So I think I'm doing 600 trees that I'm going to plant. And then there's a wildlife viewing. So, if you're out in your woods, you're always out there checking things out. There's part of the program is also just kind of keeping an eye on the wildlife. They're supposed to send us a form that says, hey, what kind of wildlife did you see from this date to this date? And it's just kind of an idea to get them to know, okay, this is what he's seeing out here. But as far as the honeysuckle and the autumn olive are they're a bush plant species, kind of a heavy stemmed bush, if you will, that typically they kind of bunch up at the beginning of the root, and then they branch out kind of into an umbrella type bush. And if you let them get too big, there's no sunlight or anything can typically get underneath there. Usually when you go through in the wintertime, you can tell if you know what you're looking for, you can tell if you've got bush honeysuckle, because it'll be one of the last things that's green. It's usually one of the first things that greens up in the spring. So typically what you got to do with those is just cut them down. Typically you're going to have, the program's 5 years. So, you're going to have reseeds that you got to go back out and attack, through a lengthy period of time, just to make sure that you get rid of all of it. But typically you're going to cut it down. You're going to spray it with a herbicide. So them being able to know what you've got done, this is mainly just for me, so I make sure I don't miss anything. The chemical, I'm going to get a dye. So when I cut a tree or a bush down, I'm going to be able to spray that stump. That one is going to kill that stump, kill the roots, but then it's also going to be a visual. It's like, hey, I cut this down and I've treated it. So then when they come to look at it, they'll either come once to twice a year, typically is what they had told me, to kind of view your property and see how you've been doing. So it's just a forester will come out, they'll look over and say, yeah, he's been working on it. He's been attacking this area of the property. So through my contract, the bushes are to be attacked at some point, but then this year I'm also to do a prep for my trees. And that's kind of the main focus of my program this year, is just doing the tree prep, and then just going out there and attacking the invasive species and trying to get them knocked down and treated.
And what's the typical duration on this? Are you signing up for like a 20-year thing?
No, not 20-year. Typically, I don't know. I think they told me if it wasn't something as, mine's kind of in the moderate category, so it's a moderate to heavy, but it's not a heavy. So that program falls into a 5-year program. Typically, after year 3, as long as you've been out there doing the work, you've got it pretty well taken care of. In year 4 and 5 is just hey, go back out visually, see if anything's resprouting. At that time, you can either do a foliar spray, or most of those plants don't have much of a root system when they're very young. So you just typically go out there and just pull them right up out of the ground, stick them up in a limb of a tree, and you don't have to worry about them going back to seed. But typically a 5-year program.
And then as far as how they assess the criteria that they're looking for, is it just simply invasives, or do they adjust this on like a yearly basis? Is this kind of something in flux?
No. So typically they don't, from the way I understand it, what I was told, they won't change the plan just because they basically know what you've got here. Unless, you had an act of God come through and destroy your timber, then something might be at that point, rerouted. But for the most part, it's just hey, this is what you've got. This is what you need to do. You've got 5 years to do it. Each year you get evaluated to make sure you are continually working on the problem. And then you just kind of keep going from there.
And the service provider network that you mentioned, is that sort of just they'll do the job if you don't want to kind of thing?
Correct. Yeah. So that registry, and I thought it was just a state by state registry, but she actually told me it's a nationwide registry. So if that's something, I don't know if we can send that link in with the podcast, but it's basically you can get on there, search by state, or if you know a forester, you can put their name in there and you can see if they're one of the qualified service providers. And like I said, yeah, if it's something that you don't want to do, you want somebody else to go out there and take care of it, usually they'll do that on a split basis depending on who you're working with.
As far as being able to jump into a program like this and get your land prepped, are there any challenges to enrolling in the program or performing the task? Like obviously labor is one, but as far as just like logistical challenges or things that can cause hangups?
So government shutdowns are going to be a hang up for sure. Government funding, that was something that I had kind of dealt with in years past, is, wanting to do something with the property, but there just wasn't enough funding to cover the landscape as well as they wanted to. So I think it was probably close to 2 years ago that I kind of started this process, and then it finally was able to come to fruition. EQIP was something that I had reached out to first, and that tends to be a lot more popular. More people were trying to apply for that, so of course that made the pool a lot smaller. And just one of the ladies at the office was like, hey, I know you're trying to do this, but there's this program over here that's very similar, and it's not as well known, so it may be something worth trying to look into. And so we went that route, and that wound up capitalizing into a contract and being able to do the program.
Gotcha. So they're trying to help you find every way possible to get stuff done at the most benefit to you and the most benefit to your land. You're not making a pitch to them. They're legitimately there to put forth the effort for you on these kind of things, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And as far as the logistics, I mean, the labor is a big part of it. If for me, it's not that big of an issue because I live on the property. I'm here every day. Especially this time of year, I'm going to be in the woods every day. So depending on what you've got going on, if you've got some of the tools, you can use everything from a chainsaw, depending on how big the stuff is. Weed eaters are a great tool. You get a saw blade on there, you don't have to do as much bending over. And then, like I said, some chemical, some spray bottles to make sure you're doing your applications right. And then just a little bit of general knowledge on, hey, okay, mix this the right way, because that's a big proponent of it too. You need to pay attention to your chemical mix, because some of the chemicals you're using are very potent, and they can wipe out some of your trees if you're doing the application improperly.
And yourself, I'm guessing.
Yes, yeah, it's not really good on yourself.
So you as a land real estate agent, right? Like you're working in land transactions. What is your role in this process, and how will you be working with clients through engagement with this program?
So, obviously, the more knowledge you have about what the landscapes have to offer, and knowing invasive species and things like that aren't beneficial for the habitat, it makes my job more from just an informational standpoint. When I'm showing somebody a property, if we walk on something and it's covered up in this stuff, this invasive species, be like, hey, if you like the track, it's one thing, but hey, there's a lot of work that's going to need to be done if you want to make it more beneficial. And it could, knowing that knowledge base of, hey, there's incentives to this to help you kind of cover some of the cost and pay you to do the work. So it kind of depends on your client. And if they're looking and they're not afraid to get their hands dirty and looking for a property that, hey, I can buy it for X, but then I can do this work and make it better because I want to make it better for my deer and turkey anyway, and then make a little bit of money back from that aspect. Then it's just the more knowledge on what you've got, the better you can advise your client.
And what advice would you give to landowners if they are curious about this program?
Just reach out to your NRCS office. They're more than willing to help you. Even if you see something you think it is, Maddie's one of the DNR foresters that come out. I mean, she's very good about answering her phone. And most of them tend to be, they're out there, they want to help you. So I would just say reach out, find out what's available in your area, what is available for you, and if nothing else, you get to meet some of your NRCS folks, and they come out to your property and kind of walk in. And they can give you some other information that you may even not have known.
Excellent. So this is a program to where any landowner can participate, given that they meet certain criteria, and improve the overall land health and biodiversity of their land, which I would guess play into the land value when they go to resell. But that's I'm not going to put numbers on it. I'm just going to say it.
Right. There you
go. Awesome, man. Well, anything else that you want to leave us with here today?
Not that I can think of. Yeah.
All right. So Jacob Jenkins is located in Indiana. If you are a landowner in Indiana, reach out to this gentleman to help you cultivate your landscape for resale. Or if you're looking to go to market, this is the person to talk to for valuation and the possibility of resale. We'll have all of Jacob's information on the show notes in the link page. Anything else? Any closing thoughts for you?
No, sir. Keep on fishing. See if you can get them. See if you can land another big fish.
Man, I'm gonna try. I just got back from a fishing trip and it beat me up. So I think I need to take a break on the fishing for a little bit.
Get you some rest.
Yeah, I got spring break coming up with the kiddo and everything. So I'll be doing that. I'll do a family vacation thing. That'll be my rest.
There you go.
Awesome, man. Well, as always, thank you very much. And landowners, check out CSP program. This is a great program for landowners to participate in, and also benefits everything around you to protect from invasive species. So this is a great thing to get into. And if you have questions, talk to Jacob Jenkins here, and he can probably help you out.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. This concludes episode number 131 for the National Land Realty podcast, discussing the Conservation Stewardship Program, otherwise known as CSP, with Indiana National Land Realty agent Jacob Jenkins. You can learn more about land ownership and the buying and selling of land at nationalland.com.